Folks, Why Would You Ask That is a podcast that answers some of the weirdest questions. A lot of those are inappropriate for some listeners. If you're squeamish, easily disturbed, or just having a bad day, this may not be for you. But if you've got to know the answers like we do, stay tuned.
Why Would You Ask That? Presented by me, M, they, them, and...
Just Karen, she, her, today.
We had some technical issues with one of our episodes again. So what this means is that Karen and I are going to do a little mini-sode for y'all. Because Remy is currently busy doing like grown-ass adult stuff.
Yeah, like saving lives and all that.
Yeah.
Or at least helping them go to the bathroom. He does a lot, though. He does a lot more than just saving lives and helping people go to the bathroom.
He also manages everything with the podcast. So
yes, yeah. Aside from the actual job that he gets paid to do, he does all of the work for this job that we don't pay him for. We don't pay ourselves either, but we don't do near as much work as he does. And it'll be evident.
Actually, it cost us money. It cost us money to make this podcast.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking today, and usually Remy is the one who brings the subjects for us to be witty and laugh about, because we always find some humor, even when it's really dark subject material. We always find something to laugh about. Usually we try to punch up with our jokes, so...
Sometimes I just punch sideways and hit myself because it's my own reflection.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, shit. Didn't mean to do that.
Yeah. But today, last time, M provided a mini episode, and I know Remy has done mini episodes, but I have not done any, and it was high time that I help out around here and pull my own weight. But the problem is that it's Black History Month, and my name is Karen, so, and I'm a white woman named Karen, so 0 for 3 right now. I don't know if that's 0 for 3. It's just, I've been struggling with the idea of even talking or leading anything on Black history. As a white woman, I feel like this isn't really my place to say anything, and I just need to sit down and listen. And I can provide, feedback, fun jokes, and earnest hope for the future, but I feel like these stories really aren't mine to tell, and I just need to sit and listen. But here we are, having been presented with a task to present on a subject, and I think the subject might be best explained as a question.
What's a question?
And this is going to sound, this is the purpose of the podcast, of why would you ask that? The question is it bad to be white?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Look, I'm only a quarter weight on my dad's side, so...
You can't really help here. But you can tell me. You can tell me if it's bad to be white. I'm just kidding. But I feel like that's a question that so many anti-critical race theory, like, super conservatives are, like, asking. They're like, is it bad to be white? Because you all are acting like it's bad to be white and bad to be American. And I think that I, as a white person, have like at least like a tiny bit of authority on saying, no, it's not bad to be white skinned. It's bad to be capital WHITE, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like, do not be white power, but I'm just your average friendly white guy, and I work at the bodega across the street.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, and even asking this question, I feel is still inappropriate for this time. But in dealing with race and the, you know, importance of Black history, it's important to recognize that Black history has been suppressed and hidden from us, not just by white men, but by white women too. A lot of feminists now kind of gloss over the whole beginning of the feminist movement.
What's the beginning of the feminist movement?
A lot of people would point to the suffragist movement,
Uh huh.
where women were trying to earn the right to vote in America.
But where would you like to point?
It's hard to say. I don't know when feminism as a concept necessarily began. I could have done a little more research like Remy does, but I'm just going off of the history that I've learned. And from what I've learned, the women's rights have always been suppressed by white men. So white women, in being suppressed, wanted to fight back and wanted to earn the right to be equal to them. However, in doing so, they used not just Black people as a whole, they used Black women specifically as stepping stones and Black men as stepping stones, because the idea that a Black man could vote before a white woman, infuriated them. And the point is, to me, when I was learning about it, I didn't understand why that necessarily was such a big deal. I mean, to me, it was like, well, why didn't we all get the right to vote at the same time? Because we're all in the same boat, in a sense. And then I realized that we're not in the same boat. And I really thought that we were, as I've grown older and learned more and more and educated myself and listened. It's become very apparent that white women and other women, other people, are not in the same category. As long as you're at least white, you're always a step above, even if you're a woman. And I feel like it's kind of a place where you just can't win, because you can't help. I mean, you can do what you can, but essentially the power that I, as a white woman, have is to suppress, if that makes sense. It's like I can never be on the same level as a white man, but I can always be better than everyone else. So it's like I could be stepping on their heads, but it doesn't mean that I'm ever going to be at the same level as the people right above me. And it's like I see other white women kind of use this as a way to alienate themselves from people of color, like trying to ostracize themselves as saying that people of color would never understand. And obviously that is very not true.
Uh-huh. You are right. And I feel like, as you're being a white woman here among the rest of us, it's more your job to amplify voices when you can. Not necessarily step down, but I mean, sit down when you need to sit down, but because of the inherent privilege that you have in being white and being middle class, your voice will be heard more.
Yeah.
But what you've been trying to do, and what other people should be doing, is using that privilege not to further yourself, but to raise up the people that need to be heard. And you do try to do that. And I think everybody else should follow such an example.
Yeah. Well, I never want to sit here and be like, yeah, I'm doing such a great job. Like, I just want everyone to be able to listen to other people's opinions, just because I don't know. I just grew up in a way that it's just better to listen. It's just better to listen and learn. And like the idea of there's a creator that I love, and she, whenever she's talking, she like will address the white people in the room, and she's like, okay, okay, mouths are closed, ears are open, like talking to white people like they're toddlers. And I'm like, yeah, we need that. Because because so many of us act like toddlers. And I don't ever want to venture into, it's difficult because I never want to venture into the territory of white girl tears, white guilt, all of that bullshit that I absolutely abhor.
The white savior complex shit.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I never want to fit into those categories, but I do oftentimes find myself doing things that I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's probably the white supremacy talking. That's probably the uh, misogyny talking, or something like that. And like, I just wish that I hadn't grown up with those ideas even put into my head, if that makes sense. Or maybe the way that people are talking now about critical race theory being taught in schools, which, let's be clear, no elementary, middle, or even maybe high school is going to be teaching critical race theory. It is not a subject that is taught at these levels. Maybe high school in like an AP sociology class or philosophy class, but these are not subjects that are taught. This is not a subject that is taught in these classes. It's a sociology theory that is, and it's like doctors and professors devote their lives to researching and discussing and proposing this theory, and it's not something that's going to be taught in classes. What is supposed to be taught, and what critical race theory is proposing is happening, is that what we teach in our schools is focused on white supremacy, or is glossing over a lot of the terrible things that America is built on. Like, when we were growing up, we learned about segregation. We learned about the assassination of Martin Luther King. We learned about the Trail of Tears. You know, we learned we learned about the Japanese internment camps during World War II. Like, those are things that we learned about, but not intensively. We didn't fully grasp it because it felt so far away. All the, like, the way people talk about it, they're like, the pictures are in black and white, and, or like, old-timey portraits. They're like, it feels far away and distant from us so that we can never fully grasp it. And I don't know about everybody else, but when I have a child, I want my child to learn things that I didn't learn. I want my child to be smarter than I ever was. And that's my hope for the future, is that the things that I've learned since I was a child, that those are the things that my child learns. Like police brutality, trans exclusionary radical feminism,
Oof.
and how to spot it, and how to break away from it. I want them to learn about intersectionality. I want my kids to be well-rounded and to learn the ways that I didn't and that I wish I had learned. Like, I wish that I knew about some of these trailblazers that Remy spoke about that was lost, but we will re-record because everyone needs to hear about them. I wish that I had learned a lot of the things that I didn't know about. Like, I wish that I knew, I feel like I'm lamenting for all the things that I didn't learn. So I apologize if that sounds really weepy. It's just,
It's the reality of it.
yeah.
You didn't learn, and therefore you're still sculpting your view and trying to figure out what's going on, and you want your child to have the luxury to learn about people, actual people everywhere, not just this, uh, what's it called? Procured? No.
Curated?
Yeah, a curated white history that focuses very plainly on a very small group of people when, like, the United States is made up of a lot of people and it was built on the backs of the people of color, especially the enslaved people who were brought here against their will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I guess to further go into this topic, I do want to address Karens and kind of the history of the meme and my personal history with the name Karen. Again, I'm still not sure if this is the time or place to be talking about that necessarily, but yeah, I will talk about Karens and how white women have always been fucking up feminism.
AKA Karen is in her wheelhouse. So
Yeah, I mean, I would rather learn about feminism from women of color. So I'm going to send Remy a list of creators that I follow that are Black and brown people that talk about, you know, history, issue, like current events, civil rights, things like that. I'm going to send them, and they will be listed on our resource page because I've learned a lot from these people, and I just want everyone to see how awesome they are. They have thousands of followers, millions sometimes, some of them. So, but yeah, the more that I can spread the word, the better. So basically, the Karen meme has kind of been in existence since 2017 as kind of not necessarily linked to the name Karen. I think the first reported time was in 2017, but the name was associated with white women with bad hair who are entitled and verbally abusive and quite possibly physically violent. And I didn't really first start seeing it pop up though until 2020, and that's when it came into my, into my space.
and you having the name Karen.
Yeah, and it actually it's not the first time that this has happened to me in
No?
2020. No. Um when we were in high school, Dane Cook was really popular,
Uh-huh.
and it was my first time experiencing raunchy comedy, as I will put it. He has a whole bit on the friend nobody likes.
Uh-oh.
Like Karen. Nobody likes Karen.
Boy. That sure is an externalization of all the self-confidence you don't have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, um, I've thought about changing my name for a long, long time. Basically ever since that moment. Because it altered the way I viewed my name, and I don't really know I don't really know where to go with that. Just that I've had this experience of my name being associated with someone that nobody likes. So,
And now it's a cultural thing, like, culturally pervasive, I should say.
yes.
Like,
Yeah.
even some of my favorite podcasts, just shorthand to refer to a white entitled woman is just Karen. And
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. And in the beginning of it, I laughed it off because I thought it was kind of funny because I knew absolutely what they meant was a white entitled woman with bad hair, that awful hairstyle, and being absolutely racist, like full blown oof. So yeah, the I laughed it off, but there was, I mean, 2020 was a rough year for everyone. And because the Karen meme became very, very, like, it spiked in popularity around George Floyd's death, because there was another incident in which, like, it was a little earlier than his death, where a white woman saw a man drawing the, or he was stenciling Black Lives Matter onto his, like, his own property, like, in front of his house. And a Karen came out and she asked him what he was doing and if he was allowed to be doing that on private property. And he's like, yeah, this is my property. And she's like, she called the police on him. And her partner are like, I haven't watched the whole video, or I did, like, back in 2020, but I don't remember very much of it. But yeah, they are awful. And basically the police come out there and they're like, what are you doing? This guy lives here. And the two of them, one, her skincare company was boycotted, and her partner was fired for that. And kudos to those who boycotted and for separating the company that separated themselves from this person. They are terrible people. And then just a few days later, George Floyd was murdered by that police officer. And it just, the two being so close together and both being racially motivated, violence, and getting the police involved, it just kind of has joined white women and racist violence together. But the thing is that they've always been that way. White women, from a very early age, are taught that they will be, if they're alone and in a quote unquote bad neighborhood, that they will be raped and that they will be killed, or they will be, like, hooked on drugs, moved into sex trafficking rings from the powers of the people of color. Like, white women are taught this from a very early age. But, as we all are well aware, a lot of white women are also fans of true crime. And there's a clear divide in true crime enthusiasts about white women who don't, how do I say this? There are white women who do recognize that the majority of hate crimes against women, not necessarily hate crimes, they're not hate crimes. The most crimes against women, most violence against women is committed by, or most violence against white women is committed by white men. And it's usually their partners, and it's usually, it's either their partners, their ex-partners, someone they're related to, or a serial killer. And most of the serial killers are white men. There are a number of serial killers who are not, but if we're going to get into it, yeah, most serial killers are white men. And there is a divide in the true crime community of white women that recognize this, and then there's another group where they're still terrified of, they justify it as, I'm not scared of Black men, I'm scared of all men. And I used to be kind of in the same vein, where I was like trying to justify my racist tendencies by saying, I'm not scared of him because he's Black. I'm scared of him because he's a man and he's bigger than me and he could hurt me, which, let's be clear. That is, to be afraid of men is justifiable if, you're a woman. But you do have to recognize the component that is racially charged.
Yeah. I was raised in much the same way, even though I grew up in a household of, well, my Filipino mother.
Mm-hmm.
There is very much this idea of there's people, and then there's people who are darker than us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something that's isolated to being white, necessarily.
Right.
I think it's the nature of being in the United States, but it's just more apparent when you are white.
Right. Yeah, because there is racism between different people of color, even. But yeah, the Karen meme definitely brings to light all of the ways that white feminism has always been hand in hand with violence against people of color. From the very beginning of the suffragette movement, so when you think of the suffragette movement, the names that typically come up are white feminists, Susan B. Anthony, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who were both flagrantly racist. And they specifically did not want Black women in any of their spaces. They at one time formed a group with Frederick Douglass and other activists, but that quickly disbanded because Frederick Douglass was like, wow, these bitches are crazy. I imagine they have the Karen eyes and everything. So, yeah, she spoke at the, what was it? I think she spoke at Seneca Falls, and she said, gave some really racist speech, basically saying, how can you equate these people of low intelligence? How can they be anywhere? How can they be given the right to vote when they can't even read or write? When you have me, a sophisticated white woman who knows how to read and write and draw and do all of the fancy lady things, and I don't get the right to vote? And it's like, it's always been an us versus them for white women. Yeah, it's always been this separation of, even though we are getting stepped on, we're like in between. We're at the top of the pile of things that get stepped on. And it's like, we would rather be at the top of the pile when, I don't know, I feel like if we worked together, we could get out of being in a pile, and we could form like a bear trap. And just let the white guys fall in. And then we say, well, that's done. And then we all work together and we're all happily ever after. But I know that that's probably a long ways off. To get back to, let's see. I got this from a Times article that is specifically about Karen meme history and its relation to violence. So this is a quote from Dr. April Williams, an assistant professor in communications and media at the University of Michigan and a fellow at the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society at Harvard. She focuses on race, gender, and community in digital spaces.
Ooh.
Yeah, she's got quite the record. I'm like, ooh, this introduction is a paragraph in itself. Good job.
Nice work.
Yeah. She says, if we're thinking about this in a historical context where white women are given the power over Black men, that their word will be valued over a black man. That makes it particularly dangerous, and that's the problem. White women are positioned as the virtue of society because they hold that position as the mother, as the keepers of virtuosity. All these ideologies that we associate with white motherhood and white women in particular, their certain role in society gives them power. And when you couple that with this racist history where white women are afraid of black men and black men are hypersexualized and seen as dangerous, then that's really a volatile combination.
Yeah.
Yeah. She says the exposure is challenging this position. And she says that's part of what people aren't seeing, is that white women do have this power, and they're exercising that power when they call or threaten to call the police. So yeah, it's like, it's hard to think about that. I mean, me as a white woman, I never really thought about myself having that much power. I always felt like I was pretty insignificant, and that my voice probably would never be heard. But having it explained to me in a way that shows that my power isn't necessarily in my overpowering, it's in what I stand for, like what my body stands for, if that makes sense. Because I myself am not virtuous or a mother, but if a police officer were to look at a situation where there is me and a young black man, they would likely listen to me unless I was crazy and waving a gun, which then I hope they would listen to the nice young man. But historically speaking, that's not necessarily true.
Unfortunately.
It's horrifying to think that that's the case. And that's where, you know, it's ironic because, you know, all of this goes back to what our bodies symbolize in the eyes of other people. Like black men being hypersexualized, black women being promoted as like being sexualized as well, white women seen as pinnacles of virtue. And it's like, I don't know. I just have always hated it. I've always hated that this is what that this is what defines us, if that makes sense. Another big thing, aside from Karen's, I guess, is the hypersexualization of black men. It's been in existence since the idea of white and black. Like, there has always been this hatred in the idea of mixing the races, which doesn't make sense because race doesn't exist. But especially when slavery was, brought into this country, was built in, is what built this country. Basically, for as long as people have been enslaving people of color, there's always been a sexualization of their features and a fear that these raging men that are just really, really, really into white women will come and take all of their women and, do terrible things to them. Or worse, that they'll make the white women feel really, really good and the white women will like it. Which brings
us... Like the Vikings.
Yeah. But it brings us into another aspect of feminism, and I don't know how else to say it, but black spaces is like white women have also sexualized black men as like they are very aesthetically pleasing, or like they just want to use them for sex. Like, this became very prominent in when Black Panther came around, because the men in the movie are very good looking, as are the women, I would like to point out. Me as a bisexual, it was a very confusing film. Not confusing. I liked it, but it did bring to light the sexualization of Black people, and how Black people were actually really uncomfortable with all of the white women basically foaming at the mouth over Michael B. Jordan, because they were like, this feels a little familiar and we don't really like it. So please calm down.
Sit your asses down.
Yeah, ma'am, you're going to have to mop all of that up. That is disgusting. Please walk out.
They are not meat in the butcher window.
Yeah. And me, as a bisexual, I was like, no, I'm not slathering over him because he's Black. I'm slathering over him because he's a man. And at the same time, I'm like, oh, you know what? This is problematic. And I'm going to have to analyze this and sit down and think about what this means.
It's a weird and difficult spot to be in, because some people in this world are just fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
I suppose there is, like, a right way to express this and a very deeply wrong way to express this.
Yeah, I think probably what really bothered them was a lot of very racially charged, like, content about Michael B. Jordan and white women specifically being attracted to him specifically because he's an attractive Black man. Whereas, he's just an attractive man. He is an attractive Black man. He's an attractive man. Like, it was the fetishization of his Blackness that really, really bothered people, and understandably so.
We're talking about the overlap of the people type in BBC in Pornhub.
Mm-hmm.
And weird white ladies who are threatened by actual people living on their street who happen to be Black.
Yes. Yeah. A weird overlap.
Same goes for the dudes who are like ebony only on their Pornhub account.
Yeah.
Whew. Like, this is a very heavy discussion, a heavy episode. Like, neither of us have many of the qualifications we need to address most of this.
Yeah. So why would we ask this? Why are we talking about this?
Because your name is Karen and you're being followed by the ghost of the evil white feminism and the absence of intersectionality in feminism today, which is diverged into, like, sects with a C, SECTS, not sex as an SEX, sects. Mm-hmm. And, none of us are really together. Like, the shorthand of being you is you are a privilege weapon.
Mm-hmm.
A privilege RPG.
Yeah. And, as much as I try every day to fight, the racism that I grew up in, which wasn't, obviously I didn't grow up with the KKK. I didn't grow up with white supremacists. I grew up with microaggressions and, the white supremacist society, the white supremacy that is in society that is not so overt. It's
what's built in already.
Exactly. So
we had the good fortune of growing up in blended neighborhoods, learning and meeting people firsthand and everything like that. Like, there's a lot growing up in the United States where the darker your skin, the more things just hate you in general.
Mhm.
But
Yeah. And we've talked, I think, about some of the ways that we witnessed segregation and racism in our everyday lives. But, you know, I mean, as hard as I try to fight it every day, there are still times when I mess up, and still times when I catch myself thinking something or even saying something, and I'm like, I realize in that moment that I'm like, or I need someone to point it out to me. So I guess the moral of the story is that is it bad to be white? It's not. It's not bad to be who you are. It's not bad that you were born with the skin that you were born with. It's bad to be proud of putting others beneath you. It's bad to be proud of being part of a system that has oppressed everyone in one way or another because of what they look like or how they were born or one reason or another. I'm not proud to be white. There's nothing to be proud about in being something that's completely made up. I would say that it's not inherently bad, but you have to understand what comes with it. And you have to understand that, you know, we have a responsibility now to make up for things that, you know, we didn't ourselves do, but for the systems that we benefit from. So that's the moral of the story. Continue to learn, continue to listen, seek answers yourself. And if you are unsure, seek out places where you can ask those questions safely. Don't just go around to people's pages and be like, hey, have you seen this, or can you explain to me about this? There are creators out there, and I will share one specifically on our resource page that are specifically geared towards answering your hard race questions. I, of course, am not qualified to answer any of them. Please do not ask me. If you ask a specifically hard race question, I will likely bring it to someone else and I will forward you to them.
yeah, listen, I gotta point out too that it's not the job of other people to educate you when you have resources available, especially
Mm-hmm.
people of color.
Mm-hmm.
You have to seek out and find this education. We'll make some resources available, obviously, but like, why would you ask that? Is at its heart now, it's an educational podcast, and you know we can only go so long without getting hot and heavy with with the topics, because you know, as much as I want to know, can you eat corpse soap? Can you wash yourself with corpse soap?
Why would you
Can
want to
you
eat
make?
soap?
Sometimes you could eat soap. I don't
Why would
know.
you? No, don't. There's lye in it. Do not eat soap.
I am 90% lie as it is. The other 10% is like shit. Specifically bullshit. Haven't you ever wondered why my eyes are brown? Jesus. And I know that this episode hasn't been like joke, funny.
Yeah, Remy's not here.
It's usually my job to be the funniest person in the room.
Oh, please. We all know Remy's the funny one.
Yeah. And you can hear in past episodes where I fuck up, where everybody fucks up. We're not exactly the go-to source for Black History Month. I'm glad that we're doing some education and doing some spotlights on Black history that's not very well known, but it isn't really our purview. It's not really our wheelhouse. It's not really our lane. So I do want you guys to like look around and expand your perspective from people who it is their lane. They're qualified. Being unqualified doesn't excuse ignorance, of course, but you know.
Right. And believe me, the sources that I'm going to share on our resource page are highly curated by a woman, by a white Karen, seeking to learn everything she can to not be a Karen.
I do rely on your white Karenness sometimes, to be fair, because I'm an anxious, scared little short brown person, and sometimes my hamburger doesn't have pickles on it.
That's true. I will go back and say, "Excuse me, could we please have some pickles on this? We ordered with pickles." I'm not gonna sit there and wave my hands and go nuts because, you know, I love fast food workers and I know how hard they are working just to not break down in the middle of their shift. But yeah, I will stand up for my friends who do need pickles on their burgers or can't have cheese on their burgers and are constantly given cheese.
Why?
I will go back there and I will say, can we please have 2 hamburgers? My friend is lactose intolerant and can't have cheese. Please. And then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, my bad.
Yeah. If this entire episode sounded like an apology to every person with more melanin in their skin than mine, it's because it is an apology. Ow, my back! Oh, fuck off!
Oh no!
Oh my god!
Oh no!
Oh, fuck off! Holy shit!
Oh, you okay? What'd you do?
You know the vertebrae right above your tailbone?
Ooh!
I laughed, and it popped!
In a bad way, I'm guessing.
You know, it feels really good after the case, but in the moment, it was very,
I lost you there for a minute.
Oh god.
I'm so sorry.
Oh my god. Holy shit. I've been trying to crack that for ages.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So now it's popped. And
next time you just call me and I'll yell at it. Excuse me, I'd like to speak to your manager.
That's a good place to end it.
I will say, we do have to end with the thanks for listening and the emails and stuff. So
all right, everybody, sorry for being
Debbie Downers this episode.
I know, right?
Yeah, sorry a Karen had to come in and ruin the mood again.
You're the world's most apologetic Karen.
100%. I will forever I will forever live with this. That's why I haven't changed my name. Because I'm like, you know what? It's just,
you're trying to be one of the good Karens.
Yeah, I will use the name K on sometimes when I order food, like for like DoorDash or something. I'll be like K, so that no one
has expectations beforehand.
I just don't want them to spit in my.
At least K and Karen work, but I sometimes use the name I've been playing with to order food, and I get a lot of confusion. That's a whole nother episode. We got to do another episode about non-binary name choice.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone. We appreciate every one of you. If you stay to the end, we do ask that you rate, review us, give us 5 stars. I don't know what your system you're using. I don't know, but whatever.
If it's available to you, tell us we did a good job in whatever means possible.
Or at least we tried.
I need the validation.
C for effort.
That's higher than my normal grade point average.
I know.
Send us questions, by the way. We do more than race, obviously. We do the weird, we do the wild, we do the serious, we do every kind of question except personal questions. And as Karen mentioned earlier, we struggle with race questions because, well, the paleness. And I'm admittedly separated from being any kind of race. I'm just a brown person existing in a world separated from any and all culture. Anyway, hit us with the hit us with questions, please. You could leave questions for us through our email. Why would you ask that pod at gmail.com? Again, that is why would you ask that pod at gmail.com. Or you could go to our website, whywouldyouaskthat.com, and there's a little form that Remy's made. It's excellent. Go in and ask your question there. It doesn't have to be a fancy question, a heavy question. You could ask us, why the fuck is the color red? And that's the whole thing.
Now I want to know, why is the color red?
I know the answer, but that's for another episode, and I'm not going to tell you.
Okay.
We hope you guys have a good night, and I hope that you love us on some level. No, I don't. Remy, edit that out. Don't love me. That's scary.
Now that you've said that, he's going to keep it in.
Oh, God. And then fade out.